Nike just released a brand new commercial featuring Caitlin Clark and her new Kobe shoe that she released today. And I saw this commercial yesterday on social media. I thought it was so cool. There's a shot when she's in the locker room and she opens her eye and it like turns into what looks like a snake eye, but when you zoom in, it's actually the Kobe logo.
When Nike servers melted down at 10 a.m., it wasn't a glitch. It was Caitlin Clark. In just 60 seconds, she sold 13,000 pairs of sneakers that weren't even truly hers, generating millions and triggering a full-blown corporate panic. This single event didn't just sell shoes. It exposed Nike's biggest blunder in years and ignited a bitter rivalry that had been simmering behind the scenes. It was the moment that proved Nike had been betting on a scripted queen, while the world had already crowned a force of nature.
Heard that Nike stocked about 14,000 of these, and that is an unconfirmed report, but they sold out in less than a minute. If that's any indication of what a Caitlin Clark signature shoe will do, I think Nike better continue to get on it and get ready to launch this brand.
For 2 straight years, Nike had been playing kingmaker. They poured a fortune in marketing gold into Aja Wilson with a crystal clear mission to crown her as the next undisputed queen of women's hoops. This wasn't just a shoe deal, it was a legacy project. She received the full royal treatment, a meticulously crafted signature line, custom emblems, and story-driven colorways designed to build a legend from the ground up. Nike's top minds were assigned to her brand, developing a narrative of power, grace, and championship pedigree.
Nike finally delivers Caitlin Clark PE. Is this the first Caitlin Clark exclusive Nike commercial since she's entered the WNBA? I know she's made a cameo here, she's made a cameo there, she was featured as part of this rollout here, featured as part of this rollout there, but is this our first official Caitlin Clark solo commercial since she has joined the WNBA?
They even brought in Malia Obama to direct one of her commercials, a move reserved for only the most elite, top-tier talent. On paper, it was a flawless strategy. Wilson was a 2-time MVP, an Olympic champion, and possessed a charisma that was built for the spotlight. From a boardroom perspective, she was the perfect investment, a blue-chip stock in the world of sports. Nike was scripting a hero's journey, building a throne for the star they had handpicked to carry the brand into the future. The narrative was perfect. The only problem? The audience was watching a different show.
But I just felt like across the board, this commercial was a 10 for 10. And a lot of people have been getting on Nike because they don't feel like they have been promoting Caitlin as much as they should. But I will say we have to give credit where credit is due. I feel like in the past month or so, they had been tweeting about Caitlin more. And then obviously with this shoe release, they made this super sick commercial to promote it.
While Nike was busy storyboarding Wilson's coronation, Caitlin Clark was setting the entire sports world on fire. She wasn't part of a marketing plan, she was the plan. She operated outside the controlled environment of corporate strategy, creating a storm of pure organic hype. Every three-pointer she launched from the logo sent SportsCenter into a frenzy, replaying the shot from every conceivable angle. Every candid press conference quote spawned 1,000 viral tweets, her words echoing across the internet without a publicist's touch. She became a walking, talking tidal wave, single-handedly spiking TV ratings by over 200% whenever her team was on the marquee.
Nike released the shoe this morning for $190. That was the going rate for the signature sneaker. Now, I'm here to tell you, as you guys can see right here on Google, just type in Caitlin Clark Kobe 5. StockX, currently right now, they're going for $345. On GOAT, they're going for $386. And Flight Club, you're looking at $375. Must mind you, these sneakers was just released a few hours ago. These sneakers were retail for $190. This is the Caitlin Clark.
She didn't just sell tickets, she sold out entire arenas, turning sleepy weekday games into can't-miss events. The economic impact was staggering. The state of Iowa reported a bump of over $82 million during her senior season alone, a testament to her drawing power. She didn't need a scripted narrative because her performance on the court was the only story that mattered. The marketplace saw it, fans saw it, competing brands were practically drooling over it. The only ones who seemed to be looking the other way were the executives at Nike.
I lost all respect for Aja Wilson. I don't want to hear her opinions. I don't care what she has to say from this point on. When you keep a Nike deal 2 years in secret while you're spewing all that crazy stuff about Caitlin Clark in the Time magazine, read it. read what she said in the Time magazine, yet you had a Nike deal the whole entire time?
When draft night finally arrived, the glaring disconnect between Nike's strategy and market reality became impossible to ignore. Clark signed a staggering 8-year, $28 million endorsement deal, one of the largest ever for a female basketball player. The number itself was a headline, but here's the kicker that left the entire sneaker world stunned. There was no signature shoe. Instead of a custom-designed Clark 1 to herald her arrival, she was given repurposed Kobe 5s.
And all this was done while the shoes being developed, while the collections being done. To demonize Caitlin Clark and try to label her as a privileged white girl that's getting all the privileges, even though she earned everything she got. This ain't about color. This is about good and bad. And I honestly find this a little evil. I find this evil. This is beyond bad, because you had the ability to speak up and say, hey, everybody, relax. Don't get on Caitlin Clark. She got a shoe deal. That's cool. I got one too. Mine's taking a little bit, but it's going to come out. Just be patient. She could have came out and said that, but she didn't.
They were essentially million-dollar hand-me-downs, while a player edition of a Kobe is a sign of respect for the late legend. For a star of Clark's magnitude, it was a clear signal of Nike's profound hesitation. The biggest, most marketable star in the sport, a player moving the needle more than anyone in decades, was lacing up another player's legacy. It was a baffling, almost insulting decision, but the market was about to deliver a lesson in supply and demand that Nike would never forget. Even in borrowed shoes, Clark was about to outsell a masterpiece.
Bouncing to it, son. Lays it in on a delectable dime for Caitlin Clark.
And then came the drop. Nike announced a limited run of the Caitlin Clark X Kobe PE. They teased it online for a few minutes, and the internet immediately lost its collective mind. At launch, the SNKRS app didn't just slow down, it waved a white flag and surrendered. Error messages flooded social media as thousands of hopeful buyers were unceremoniously booted from the queue. The entire stock of 13,000 pairs, priced at $109, disintegrated in under a minute.
I find it's very deplorable to me. I find it's very deplorable that you allow Caitlin Clark to get crapped on that whole entire time and didn't even speak up. And on top of that, Nike's a bunch of a-holes too, because they didn't speak up and defend Caitlin Clark or speak up and say, hey, we got Aja's shoe coming. Just gotta be patient. Caitlin Clark's gonna get hers too. I don't understand the tactics here. All you're causing controversy that didn't have to be there. You're calling division where it didn't have to be there. You're calling racial, issues where it didn't have to be there.
That's a gross of nearly $2.5 million before the first shipping label was even printed. Hours later, the resale market went nuclear. On StockX, pairs were listed for $345. On GOAT, $386. On Flight Club, they hit $375 and kept climbing. 100 to 200% markup in the blink of an eye. Meanwhile, Aja Wilson's most recent shoe drop sat with its inventory fully stocked, a politely ignored RSVP to a party that everyone had skipped to go to Clark's. The numbers told a brutal story that no marketing campaign could spin.
So it's finally here. Caitlin Clark sneakers from Nike is finally dropping. She was signed to them last year, and the sneakers is a year late in my opinion, but nonetheless I'm excited because these sneakers is finally coming out. But what does annoy me a little bit is that this is a collaboration with Kobe. Now, Kobe, respect to Kobe, legend, rest in peace, great basketball player. But in my opinion, Caitlin Clark is a big enough star and she's creating her own legacy. So I feel like, at least for her first sneaker, it shouldn't be a collaboration with any other player, dead or alive, in my opinion. I feel like Caitlin should have, for her first shoe, had her own original design just for her. No.
But this digital gold rush wasn't just about sneakers. It threw gasoline on a fire of controversy that had been simmering for months. Aja Wilson had been publicly campaigning for more respect, sometimes hinting at double standards and media bias. In a widely read Time magazine article, her comments were interpreted by many as a direct shot at Clark, painting her as a privileged white girl receiving unearned attention. This narrative began to take hold, creating a sharp and uncomfortable division among fans. But then, the real bombshell surfaced. Reports alleged that Wilson had a secret, multi-year Nike shoe deal extension in her back pocket the entire time she was making these comments. The revelation was devastating to her position. Social media went to DEFCON 1. Fans and critics accused her of engineering a false narrative and demonizing a fellow player, all while knowing her own massive payday was already secure. The perception shifted overnight, from an athlete fighting for respect to a strategist creating division to protect her own spotlight. The situation had spiraled from a business rivalry into a full-blown culture war, and Nike was caught right in the middle of the shrapnel. As the controversy boiled over, Nike was finally forced to make a decisive move, and their response was pure Hollywood. They dropped a new commercial. The screen is dark, the moody pre-game quiet of a locker room, lights flicker, Caitlin Clark's eyes snap open, and for a split second, her pupil morphs into the iconic Kobe logo like the eye of a serpent ready to strike. For the next 30 seconds, there's no monologue, no moralizing, just pure cinematic swagger set to a pulsing, infectious beat. It was a masterpiece of implication. Nike didn't need to say a word. The message was seared into every frame. The ad was an instant sensation, racking up millions of views and being hailed by ad execs and sneaker blogs as a 10 out of 10 and long overdue. But it was more than just a cool commercial. It was Nike's public surrender, a cinematic apology letter admitting they had backed the wrong horse and were finally ready to feed the phenomenon they had spent months trying to manage and control. So why did the biggest sports brand on the planet go so blind? Sources say the answer lies in a dangerous cocktail of corporate inertia and financial pressure. Nike's stock price had slid to a 5-year low, and the company was operating from a defensive crouch, clinging to old playbooks. Their strategy was built around predictable, controllable narratives, and Aja Wilson fit that mold perfectly. Caitlin Clark, however, was a disruptive variable they couldn't model. The internal frustration was so high that a former Nike basketball marketing lead, Jordan Rogers, reportedly lambasted the company publicly for sleeping on the biggest needle mover in sports. Imagine watching your stock options evaporate while discovering oil in your backyard and choosing to water the lawn instead. The Clark phenomenon wasn't just a marketing opportunity, it was a lifeline, and Nike's leadership almost missed it entirely because they were too busy admiring a plan that was already obsolete. The fallout from Nike's fumble has now set the stage for an unprecedented showdown. Insiders are whispering that the Clark 1 is being fast-tracked with a vengeance. We're not just talking about a shoe, we're talking about a weapon. It's rumored to have a completely new silhouette, a bespoke logo, and a design built from the ground up for women, all slated to land in full family sizing. Nike will likely produce a much larger run, perhaps 100,000 to 150,000 pairs, but will keep it just scarce enough to make eBay sharks circle. For Aja Wilson, this presents a monumental challenge. Her path forward is to carve out a distinct lane, one focused on leadership, gritty defense, and community impact, because she can no longer compete on pure hype. The next 12 months will be a brutal test. Can a carefully crafted brand survive in the shadow of a cultural tidal wave? The sneaker world is holding its breath. Ultimately, the chaotic saga of Caitlin Clark, Aja Wilson, and a sold-out sneaker exposed the massive gap between a brand's carefully curated marketing plan and the raw, untamable power of authentic magnetism. Nike tried to build an icon using an algorithm. They calculated the accolades, the media training, and the strategic partnerships. They checked all the corporate boxes for Aja Wilson, but the consumer never felt that gravitational pull. Her line felt like a well-made product, but not a cultural must-have. Clark, on the other hand, is an experience. She doesn't need a campaign, her game is the campaign. Nike learned a painful and expensive lesson. You can't storyboard a wildfire. The market had to drag the swoosh, kicking and screaming, to the most obvious conclusion in sports. Now the question remains, did they learn their lesson, or did they just pivot to stop the bleeding? The battle for the soul of the brand has shown that in the modern age, the consumer, not the committee, anoints the superstar. And right now, Caitlin Clark is airborne, while everyone else is just racing to catch a ride before the altitude gets out of reach.